The reading that Gillet offered us this morning, I should tell you it's a true story, written down by neurologist and poet Parker Towle, as she mentioned, after hearing that chaplain's story. Apparently, he rushed outside in the middle of some symposium and jotted down that poem, and there it is. But it came to me while I was serving as a chaplain at Hebrew Senior Life. I've shared about my time there with you before. I worked in the wing for long-term elderly residents suffering from dementia right around 2017 for about a year. But before I began this ministry at Hebrew Senior Life, I thought I knew more or less what chaplaincy involved and what it was. I pictured someone who was called upon mainly, not always, but mainly by deeply religious patients or families who needed a prayer of some kind. And so to prepare for this, I made a little book of prayers, a kind of cheat sheet, made up mainly from the Jewish tradition, as this was the main demographic at Hebrew Senior Life, but there were some Christian prayers in there and some UU prayers just in case. And I thought I was pretty prepared. Anyone have any guesses how many times I pulled that prayer book out? I already see. Nailed it. 0. Yeah. And this isn't to say that I didn't pray with people. We prayed all the time. But like the story of our volunteer chaplain in our reading today, prayer and spirit and connection arrived in varied and mysterious forms. So often through simply listening to people's stories. Chaplaincy taught me a lot about listening. And it taught me a lot about what it means to be a soul friend to someone. Soul friend. S-O-U-L. So this is what the early Celtic church called someone who acted as a true companion. Soul friend. And they called this Anam Cara in Gaelic. Anam meaning soul, Cara meaning friend. 25 years ago, Irish poet and scholar John O'Donoghue wrote a lovely little book called Anam Cara, a book of Celtic wisdom. And he writes in it, with the Anam Cara, soul friend, you could share your innermost self, your mind, and your heart. This friendship was an act of recognition and belonging. O'Donoghue says that in everyone's life, there is a great need for an Anam Cara, a soul friend. In this love, you are understood as you are, without mask or pretension, and where you are understood, you are at home. Understanding nourishes belonging, he writes. So let's unpack this word soul. Soulful, soulfulness. It simply means that which is imbued with genuineness and depth. Genuineness and depth. Soulfulness is not an intellectual enterprise or pursuit. It is revealed in words or no words that come from the heart, that touch the heart. You know this feeling. You know it because you have a pulse. You know this feeling. When you feel it, your nervous system quiets, even for just a moment, right? Your mind slows. You feel like love is near. Maybe you get a tear in the eye or chills. You feel safe, in good company, not alone. Yeah. Nanam Kara puts all of this soulfulness, this depth that cuts across all convention, morality, category. Those are John O'Donohue's words. Puts all of this into the realm of friendship, connection with another human being. It cuts across convention, morality, and category, because when we are in these deep, soulful waters with another person, difference, division, separateness recede. And this kind of open-hearted intimacy with another human being takes courage, right? I sense many of us are not even practiced at it. I don't know that our culture really teaches us this. So it takes courage to get to the heart of the matter with others. But I guess I would ask, isn't this why we come to church? To cultivate this kind of courage? To be soul friends and companions to one another? I would say it speaks to our deepest need here. The pandemic offered us a glimpse into the reason why we need church. Am I right? Yeah. It cut to the root of what is needed and why we do what we do here. For what else mattered? What else mattered, really, but caring for one another, companioning one another? It preceded all else, and it should continue to precede all else and imbue all that we do here. And I am so glad that this is alive here at First Parish, for it is. It is. Many of you found, for example, great comfort and companionship in your chalice circles last year. We plan to offer those again this year. Circles where soul friendship is nourished. Or in evening vespers, where silence and candlelight and music hold us together in mysterious ways. This takes attention, and it requires the ability to be present, which in our fast-paced world where we pass one another by all day long, it takes practice, but it's worth it. Because in the silence we arrive home to ourselves, and our capacity to be a soul friend to someone becomes possible. I believe that Reverend Andrew preached a bit about this last week. A different kind of soul companioning and friendship takes place here every Sunday during worship, in our weekly practice of sharing our joys and sorrows with one another, or when we come up and silently light candles and without words or gestures bear witness to one another. I could go on and on. I know you know what soul companioning means here in all the ways you offer it and receive it. And what a magnificent and holy reciprocity there is in Anam Kara. For soul friendship means both meeting our deepest longing to be seen and heard and known and cared for, and out of this, and also requires us to see and hear and know and care for. And out of this simple and balanced practice of reciprocity, we are nothing short of transformed. And I sense you already know this well. You are people who care deeply for one another. I know that about you. This past week, one of you shared a wonderful opinion piece from the New York Times with me. It was written just this last week by the Anglican priest Tish Harrison Warren. Its title, "What if burnout is less about work and more about isolation?" In it, Reverend Tish writes, "By virtue of how modernity and the Enlightenment's emphasis on the individual, we have been practicing isolation for much longer than we know." And she goes on to connect isolation and loneliness to the collective burnout we are experiencing, and whose remedy, she writes, is deep soul connection with others. But she points out something important. For a common response to this prescription of hers that she has found, connecting with someone deeply, is, "I don't have anyone to connect to. I don't have any friends like this." And her response is a brilliant one. I'm going to paraphrase it for you. She says, "Unless we are hermits living in the Alaskan tundra, we do have people that we could call. But the truth is we are afraid to call them. It's important for us to be clear," she says, "that saying things like, 'I don't have friends to call,' is a way that we tell a story." And I hope you hear this. It's a way that we tell a story that helps us avoid being afraid. I know that fear. So here we are back at courage, right? Reverend Tish closes her piece by saying this: "Your longing to not be burned out is a longing for so much more than that. It is a longing for beauty and goodness that you want, and you don't even know how badly you want it, but that you want it is because you've been made to want it by the maker of all good things. And I want to honor that," these are her words, "and say to people, that's right. And that's why I want you to go find the friends that you think you don't have and tell them, we're going to have a conversation like we've never had before." There are people sitting near you right now, or in the box right next to you on Zoom, who would welcome your call. It is just what they long for as well, to be called. What I so love about that Parker Towel piece, our cantankerous volunteer chaplain story, is its reminder to listen closely, for you never know what can happen. What soul might be touched, transformed, saved by your simply being there as a soul friend. And I can be that vexed, plan-oriented, distracted, frustrated chaplain. Can any of you? Yeah. Things aren't happening the way I think they should. Move it along. I was this person a bit at the beginning of my chaplaincy at Hebrew Senior Life, with my little cheat sheet of prayers and plans in my pocket. And all these blessed residents wanted from their chaplain was someone to sit with them and listen to their stories, many of which were their version of hooking rugs and ice fishing. But friends, they were so much more than these. They were about love and loss and memory and identity. And I was the lucky one when I knew this to be true, when I could see it for what it really was. And you get to be this for one another. The lucky ones here in this church. So let's listen to Parker Towell's words again. They're just so good. He volunteered with a dying patient, expecting to go through the 5 stages of grief at the first meeting. Instead, she talked about hooking rugs. The needle, the thread, the cloth, the rhythmic movement of the hands. He tried other matters in conversation. She talked of hooking rugs. On the next visit, she spoke of the intricacies and hardships of ice fishing that her husband had enjoyed before his death. Week after week, hooking rugs and ice fishing. Angered, he said to friends, "I can't go on with this interminable hooking rugs and ice fishing." One day, as they sat in the hospital cafeteria, she going on, he bored and vexed with hooking rugs and ice fishing. The room went silent. The air turned a luminous shade of green. Hooking rugs and ice fishing stopped. She leaned over and said, "I could not have done this without you." Then on again with hooking rugs and ice fishing. Soon after she died, at the funeral, relatives said to him, "Thank you. All she ever spoke about was you." My prayer for you these coming days and weeks this church year is that you will courageously share something deep and true about yourself with someone else here. And that you will change seats. Some of you are really good at sharing. Others are brilliant at listening. Change it up. Know where you might need some practice on the other side. And if you are feeling like you have no one to call or are lost among us, feeling isolated and lonely as if no one speaks your language, I hope you will participate in some of the groups and gatherings that this church offers that I've already mentioned today. Maybe you're thinking about something new that is needed here, right? Tell us about it. Work with one another to bring it to life. We will be better for it. We will be better for it. Or courageously write a loneliness or need or hard truth on your sorrow card at next week's service and put your name on it. All of this is what church is, my dear companions and anamkaras. And so I offer you this closing blessing from John O'Donohue entitled "Blessing for a New Home" to honor this parish this morning, this house of belonging. May this be a safe place, full of understanding and acceptance, where you can be as you are without the need of any mask or pretense or image. May this be a place of discovery where the possibilities that sleep in the clay of your soul can emerge. May this be a house of courage where healing and growth are loved, where dignity and forgiveness prevail, where patience of spirit is prized, and the sight of the destination is never lost, though the journey be difficult and slow. May there be great delight in this place. May it be a house of welcome for the broken and diminished. And may we have eyes to see that no one arrives without a gift, and no one leaves without a blessing. And so I say to you, amen. Feel free to throw on out yourself if you are so moved. Amen.